Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about Hades 2. Now it's been a few days since I made a Hades video because I've been so busy on Destiny, but I have a build for you today with the Witch's Staff and using Poseidon that is absolutely busted and broken, and I say this in every video. However, this was the easiest and most trivial build for me to beat this game with. Barely had any trouble or struggles whatsoever because of just how goddamn good it is, and it wasn't even the best version of this build. So let's talk about it. With the Witch's Staff and Poseidon, you can pretty much beat this game with specific builds. Now the absolute meta version of this, the best build in the game, is what I was looking for, and that is the special version of it. So when you fire a special and you do your wave flourish damage, you'll hit the enemy, do wave damage, and also knock them away. And on top of that, if you get the hammer and get double shots, I can't remember what it's called, double moonshot maybe, you fire 2 specials at a time, so you can just absolutely rinse damage from range, and it's just a lot more consistent and faster and easier than the build that I'm going to show you today. And that is the same build except using the attack version of it, which is wave strike. So you can attack from a certain range but also just do a lot of damage very quickly. Now I will say, like all my builds and all my videos, this is without any heat whatsoever, because I think a lot of people just want to build to beat the game for the first time or the first couple of times, and heat is a whole different thing. With that being said, this build was very empty because I had so many things that I didn't need that I had to pick up, that it just became so sad and disappointing to me that this build could have been even more destructive. So I had 8 miscellaneous boons to do with hex and building up my hex, which did affect my like survivability and stuff, but ultimately I didn't need them because this build's so badass anyway. I also had a couple of seed stuff, so when you get seeds you get hearts and all that, which I don't even think I got a seed this entire run, so they were useless as well. I also had wave flourish, which I didn't use because I was using the attack version of it. I had vampiric catechism, which is omega attacks regen health, I think like 5 hearts every time you kill someone with an omega attack. I barely used it. I used it at the start of the run before I had the full build actually in place, but I didn't need it because I wasn't taking much damage at all. I also had fluid gain, so when you collect those bubbles it gives you mana that you need for those omega attacks, but I wasn't really using them, so I didn't need mana. All I was doing was attacking with this build. So I had about 10 boons that were completely useless. If I got those 10 boons into some sort of damage or something to do with extra, you know, that coincides with the things I was using, this would have been absolutely just destructive. I would have absolutely annihilated everything. I did anyway, but it would have been even easier. So with the attack version of this, there are 2 hammer perks that you want. Double wallop, which attacks twice sometimes, and the one that extends range, which I can't quite remember what it's called. I got the double wallop here. I didn't get the range one, so I had to be a little bit closer to enemies, and basically it attacks twice sometimes. So as you're fighting and you're doing your normal attacks, sometimes it'll pop up with a little yellow 2x, which means basically you do double damage on that specific hit. And I also had swift strike, which allowed me to attack 10% faster. So not only was I doing double damage on a consistent basis, I was also attacking faster, which meant when I lock people in place in like little groups of enemies, I can just absolutely obliterate them with just a normal attack. But on top of that, I had wave strike from Poseidon. Now that obviously extends your attack range, but also it hits the enemies with splash, knocks them away. And I had the epic version at level 3. So I was doing 33 damage on a wave hit. So normal attack, double attack, and also the wave strike, and just the amount of damage that does. Utterly unbelievable. But on top of that, I had crashing wave. So when you knock away those enemies using the wave strikes and doing all those damage, if they hit like a barrier or a wall, they will explode, and the damage that you'll do in that area will do 50 damage to everything around it. So you are just absolutely just pushing enemies around, hitting them into walls, and just absolutely destroying them. I also had melting swipe, so my dash strike was a larger range, but it does 60% of damage to armor depending on the total armor. So anything that was armored, all I had to do was dash strike them, hit them, take their armor down, and then just continue to attack and just obliterate their health. And speaking of the boons before that I didn't really need, there's a few more that I didn't really need, but they were fun and they did get involved in some way, shape or form. And the first one was pressure points, which give me plus 3% for a critical hit, which is obviously very good, but it was a common boon, so it was only 3%. However, it did help the build. I also had frigid sprint, which creates a cyclone as you're running, which does 6 damage every 0.25 seconds, I believe. And I also had nitro sprint to make me sprint faster. These not particularly incredible for the build. The frigid sprint is decent, but they were fun to use, and you know, I didn't want to say there was like 15 miscellaneous boons. That they were involved in some way, so they were fun. Now, while all the attacking and damage is fun, I actually found the cast part of this build that I made to be the most fun part of this, and made me just feel like I was just the best player in the world. And I found Lightning Lance. Now this is, you hold the cast to aim where your binding circle goes, and when it lands on the floor it does 110 bolt damage to any enemies that are in it. I had the epic version at level 2. I never picked this ever, because I thought it was hold the cast so you turn it into an omega cast, and then you can move it around on the floor and put it wherever you want. Now for me, when I have had things to this nature, I felt like the sensitivity and the control over where it goes is a little bit wild, so I just never bother with it. However, I found that in your options, if you have like the option to attack the nearest enemy to you, all you have to do with this is press the cast once, and it will attach to the nearest enemy and drop the cast on the floor. So if you're in a room with a whole bunch of enemies all grouped up, you just need to press the cast once and it will land on them and hold them all in place, which allows you then to attack them with the Poseidon damage that you are doing. But on top of that, and unfortunately these were only common boons, but they still worked really well, I had Arctic Ring, which deals damage and inflicts freeze for 10 damage every 0.5 seconds. So when you drop that on the whole group of enemies, they're not only just going to get stuck there, they're going to get freeze inflicted on them and take damage. And I can just press the cast once from range and drop it on them. I also had Gale Force, which creates a cyclone around the cast, and that does 4 damage every 0.25 seconds. So I could just be bang, hit the cast, and I'm doing multiple enemies, hitting with a lot of damage before I even start attacking. When I start attacking, they're gone, they're dead, they're finished. I also had Divine Vengeance, so every time I got attacked, I did 100 damage up to 5 times, which again, not really needed, but it did do some work throughout the game, especially at Chronos, because I was taking a lot of hits. But all in all, this build could have been so much better if I'd had at least 5 of those boons that were miscellaneous, tied to, I don't know, something to do with damage or speed of my attack, or, you know, just things to improve the best parts of this build. I would have been sailing through this, and I was sailing through it anyway. I had a little bit of trouble at Chronos, but who doesn't? I don't even think I died once at Chronos though. I don't think I used the Death Defied. If I did, it was you know, very late into the fight. But I just love this build, and I'm going to try my best to build the perfect Poseidon Witch's Staff build and record it live. That's what I'm going to try to do. But yeah, for all in all, this is just so ridiculously good, and it's a shame that the Witch's Staff and Poseidon is so good in this game, because there's no point in using anything else, and that's very sad. All the other weapons are very intricate, or something you have to do very specific things just to get them to 25% as good as the Poseidon builds on the Witch's Staff. So I really hope that they do some tuning, they don't break the Witch's Staff and Poseidon too much, but they improve the other weapons to be just more fun and more consistent and worth using. The only other thing for me that's worth using is the aspect of pan on the sister blades, but unfortunately the Poseidon just outdoes it every single time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you build some badass Witch's Staff Poseidon builds. Let me know what you use down below in the comment section, and thank you for watching. I've been Easy. Now you guys have been awesome.